scats. I am one of those.
Yo, so we're making another video, but it's mostly because I want to make regular videos. So, like, gotta make regular videos to do that, I'm pretty sure. I thought I'd, like, come up with a subject and I'd be like, hey, look, these are the things you need to know about Dynasty. But I went and watched a bunch of them. I was like, nah, I just can't pretend there's anything you need to know that badly. But it's rookie season. I've just put, like, the final misspelling into my rookie ranks. I just thought I'd mention the top tier wide receiver. Honestly, just walk through it. I'm actually having a lot of fun on Twitter right now, so it's kind of hard to walk away. Just memeing at the idea that, you know, film and tape and analytics, two sides to the same coin, as if, you know, that's true. It's not. It's the same thing. We're just guessing at fantasy points. And I thought, actually, it might integrate right now, because I can show you how I literally avoid my analytics for the information and the hype, the stories, the stuff people who watch these players are telling me as I go. Like, I use analytics to try and highlight players that stand out, and that's my first tier in my ranks. Wide receiver, running back, it's just those that stand out significantly more than others. But everyone has pluses and minuses. You can find positives for everyone's. And anyway, I just thought we'd do that. Well, we just look at my top tier at wide receiver. It's actually pretty deep. Last year, it was just really for 3 or 4 players. If I updated my process for what it is now to what it is then, because I really do try and evolve and get better every season. This year, I'm paying a lot more attention to conference. I'm discounting players are less likely to get draft capital. I'm also leaning less heavily on Breakout Age as just this single defining identifier that I want. I like Breakout Age a lot as a shorthand, but it's really not how I've been profiling, and so I shouldn't, you know, rank players within tiers just based on Breakout Age, so I'm not doing that anymore. But I can actually boil it into a story. I don't have to, like, my ranks are here. You can see them. Go to my Patreon, they're posted. I'm writing notes, essentially, so people can see what I'm saying, not just a stupid number. And my ranks differ than every ranking order from any stat in the database. I really do profile much more than I create models or think I'm predicting the actual future. And there's a clear tier of players in most positions, most years. Sometimes it's bigger, sometimes it's smaller. This year it feels a little thicker, with less negatives than it did last year. That doesn't mean it's necessarily a better class. It's just some players that stood out without those negatives as much as last year. But, you know, you can go see my rankings from 2019 as well. When I was doing it a little differently, I was mostly putting it in a draft board format. Pre-draft, I'm just sticking to kind of a tier list. So let me talk about them a little bit and see what you think. I'm going to tell you who you should draft, obviously, absolutely, because these are definitely the best. No, they're really not, man. But, you know, we'll try our best. So, first off, I got Jamar Chase, and the simplest thing to say about Jamar Chase is he misses no beats. This was my CD Lamb evaluation last year. Like, there's nothing bad here. He hits well in all metrics. He comes from the conference with the highest drafted rate, so the most players since 2003 have been drafted from the SEC West of any conference entering the NFL, and also the highest hit rate, largely because of that draft capital discrepancy. Like 22% of all wide receivers drafted in the last 20 years have come from the SEC West. 12% of them from the SEC, and 12% alone came from the SEC West. And the next closest is like 8%. It's a significant disparity, and so that goes in his favor. So he has a highest pre-draft model score, whatever that thing is, from the highest conference. And like I say, I can find no stat where he looks bad. He's at or above the average in most of them. His breakout ages are both at 19, but again, you don't have to have a breakout age to be the best player or the cleanest profile. His dominator over average is like 3.4 or so, or his yards per team pass attempt dominator, which is a dominator formula just applied to yards per team pass attempt from this best of last season. I thought that would be a fun thing to do. And, you know, it's better than college dominator by itself as a linear relationship to points per game, and also yards dominator, which I tried last year. In terms of how he compares to players that have hit in the NFL before, he actually has a 0.4 age-adjusted yards per team pass attempt for for his entirety of his career, which is actually a significant number. 0 would be perfectly, on average, the same as age-adjusted players that have hit in the NFL before, so being slightly above that is better. And it's just, yeah, he compares really well. And actually something that I've been doing, it's not in the database, but I've been using the database to do it, is I've been one, creating a percentile rank of my pre-draft model, just try and find comparisons. But another thing I've been running and kind of starting to apply to most tabs right now is just a comparison score, which isn't to do with the player or how much I like him, it's just how they made their points. So with wide receiver, it's specifically looking there at the average yards per reception and receptions per game, and also that yards per team pass attempt dominator thing, just to rope production in a little bit. I've been looking at the percentage difference between the player in those 3 or 4 things, literally how they made their points, like if they're getting a lot of volume or if they're getting a lot of yards per reception, so presumably they're working a little further down the field, or perhaps they're pretty good yards after catch monsters. Either way, yards per reception really doesn't separate out there. But anyway, I've been just running the percentile difference, and Jamar Chase compares excellently to those who, again, have hit in the NFL. He's actually 11% over in those stats compared to, again, players who've had at least 2 top 24 seasons, and positive's positive, so he's making it in a similar way. We don't need a little guy score for him, even though I'm unaware of his height and weight since there's no combine information. And yeah, he looks like a really good prospect. He did nothing wrong. It stands out very clearly. And when you go to like little modifiers like where he's being drafted from, the NFL loves the SEC West. They love that team. They draft from it a lot, and players from that conference hit a lot when they're drafted from it. So there's nothing not to like. And that sounds like not high enough. I'm like the first guy in my upper tier, but I can't be higher. You can't do... It's not exponential. You don't have a larger yards per team pass attempt and therefore are better. The idea is to create hit rate buckets, and there's not a single good hit rate bucket I could create that Jamar Chase doesn't stand out in. So yeah, he stands out. He's very clearly has a positive profile, very clearly productive, in a tough situation with no need to adjust down the expectations based on the competition he's playing or anything like that. He's just great. Now, the other guy in my standout tier at wide receiver is Rashad Bateman. I could say the same thing for him, except for the fact that, again, it's not exponential, but some of his numbers are significantly higher than Jamar Chase's. He's playing in a very different place, and again, it doesn't mean you get a better number, therefore you're better. It just means he's very clearly standing out in all the same ways, but he's coming from the SEC West with the draft. The NFL's never spent a third-round draft pick on, so he has a 0% drafted rate for his conference, and 0 players have hit from the Big Ten West either, so he has a 0% hit rate from his conference. I don't think that tells us anything about the player. It does tell us the NFL is kind of inclined to spend less draft capital on a player coming from there, but hopefully he can be the exception. Right here we'll see our first top 3-round picks. So he's under Jamar Chase, but in every other way he stands out just as well. Now, obviously he plays the position slightly differently, and if I refer back to that what was I calling it? The comparison score in terms of yards per reception and receptions per game. Bateman actually compares as well to top 24 prospects. So both about 11% difference between the average of successful players and themselves. And again, that they're over that is actually not more of a positive thing, but it's definitely better than being under it. I would like them to be compare well instead of compare negatively, or compare positively instead of compare negatively. And he also has an 18 age breakout age, which obviously, you know, that's an identifier. I really do like the fact he broke out for 20% of his team's offense at age 18. He broke out for 30% at age 19, which so did Jamar Chase. Jamar Chase just broke out in the same year. He had 30%, and that counts as both his years, which means Bateman was better when he first stepped on the field. And also, you got to remember with Bateman that he was playing with Tyler Johnson, who I know at this point is just proof that analytics nerds don't know what they're talking about, but Johnson was a huge part of that team. And so to co-opt so much of the team's production with Johnson there and then Johnson not there means that this is like a Calvin Ridley, Julio Jones situation, or an Adam Thielen, Justin Jefferson situation. Yes, being a large part of the team's offense is a really good signal that is at least the best player on the team, but doing it while another player is always just already distinguishing themselves in terms of the amount of offense they're gaining just means you're that much more exceptional. If you believe in situational crunches or team adjustment scores, Bateman's amazing. I don't, so I don't give him extra props for it, but I just thought I'd throw it out there. Bateman's pre-draft scores in like the 99th percentile on my post-draft model, so he'll probably fail just so that people can, meme me improve analytics don't work again, but really big fan, and his profile stands out. Like, again, it can't stand out any more than it does. It stands out as well as Jamar Chase's. He's just got a conference difference. Who's next in my standout tier over here? Can you see that? I can't see what you can see. Yeah, Elijah Moore. Elijah Moore comes from that same conference as Jamar Chase, from a different team, obviously. So he's got the same conference positives that I've already mentioned. Outside of that, he has the second highest pre-draft score from that highest conference, so he very clearly stands out just in that term, just in those terms, and that one of the main metrics I use of productive or not productive compared to past players. It's my pre-draft model. Elijah Moore fits that, just slightly less than Jamar Chase, and he's coming from that great conference. There's nothing not to like. He's got breakout ages like Jamar Chase, both at 19 years old, a little less impressive at age 18, but who really gives a crap? It's within the threshold. And he's also more likely to get draft capital. I also hear the least about him of the players in my clear standout tier in terms of their metrics. So, yeah, in fact, his yards per team dominator is kind of off the charts. I can't find many players that had a 4.1 yards per team pass attempt at, like, above average. Like, that's exceptionally impressive. And again, it's not linear. That doesn't mean he's better than Jamar Chase or will be better in the NFL. It's just a measure for how well he's standing out and why he's in my stand-up tier. It's not just the conference. It's not just that he has a good breakout age. When you look at his individual stats, I mean, they're kind of off the charts in terms of that merger of efficiency and role on a team throughout the last 20 years. Like, it goes up there with Demaryius Thomas, and Demaryius Thomas was playing in a very poor situation in a heavy passing offense that's been talked about endlessly. Like, he was just amazingly productive, and so the fact Elijah Moore has a similar merger of volume and role in a tougher conference, that's pretty impressive to me. I'm really excited to see where he gets drafted, because I think he's fairly underrated right now based on where he's coming from in his conference. At least, and again, how productive he is. Now, the last guy in my, these players clearly stand out above the rest, at least in terms of the production profiles. Rondale Moore, he's going to be talked about endlessly, so you don't have to hear me go on about it too much. He has very clearly the best season by age-adjusted production of any player in this class, and he has it at the most interesting age. At age 18, he had like a 32% dominator rating, I believe, from memory, so check me on that if you care, but it doesn't matter. It's well over the threshold. It's incredibly impressive to be that much of a team's production. At 18 years old, I don't care that someone told me he's small. I have no combine stats. I can't prove it. I don't care. I don't care how tiny he is. He was amazing at age 18 and easily crosses into the standout tier with that. Now, the problem with it is kind of like a reverse Jalen Waddle. He only played one season fully, and whereas Waddle's was slightly below average, Rondale Moore's was kind of off the charts productive and at a younger age than Jalen Waddle played. So, but having said that, Rondale Moore enters my top tier here with the same caveat. The problem is we don't know how that plays out. Plenty of people have had great seasons early and then terrible seasons after, moderating our expectations for what they might be when they elevate to the next level. That exists for Rondale Moore. I don't know. I can only see what in this small window we get into their college production, and frankly, if he had played more, my expectations and liking of his profile may have come down in the same way that Jalen Waddle did enough to say he could have improved at age 20 and I would have been higher on him, so I'm accepting that variance. And so I moved Waddle up a little bit when I found some positive comparisons like to Robbie Anderson, but in the same way, Rondale Moore has to sink to the bottom of that top tier. He stands out in a very important way that I think is very telling of what his potential is at the NFL level. But, like, he has a problem, or not he has a problem, we have a problem in reading what he might be in the NFL that the other three players in this tier just don't have. So he might be my favorite dark horse, and if the value drops on him because of draft capital, or the value drops on him because people are just don't like his tape or whatever it is, I'm gonna snatch him up. Don't let me. I will trade up to get him. I don't care if it's a good value range based on what happens in the NFL draft. I'm coming for the more. That particular Moore and also the other particular Moore. I like all Moores, basically. That's what I'm learning about this draft class. I just like DJ Moore, Elijah Moore, stack me up with Moores, basically. But yeah, it does have a problem, and I want to draw that comparison not to show that, because people are going to hate me for how much I don't like Jalen Waddle. That's what I'm getting from the general vibe when I talk about him. But I'm doing the same problem exists in Rondale Moore's profile. It's just that when he got a chance to play, he was significantly impressive based on his age. And even in fact, if he was playing at 19 or 20, his production that year would have been above the age curve. That's how far above he was at age 18, because we expect somewhat of a progression. Most players get more and become a larger part of their offense throughout their year. And you can check out Zeno, the dude, Z, I don't know, Zeno, just follow him. He runs that app for DLF, and it's also a free version of it, which is called ZenoIsMy.name. And you can check out Graphs, where you can see the gradual progression of players' possession of the percentage, or their yards per team pass attempt for that matter, over the course of their career. And if you familiarize yourself with it at all, you'll see that most players get better as they play. Very few come in at a very high level like Rondale Moore did, like Rashad Bateman did, like Jamar Chase did. But most players that hit start a little lower, actually, which is why they're above the age curve and gradually progress. And even some players that started out low, like, frankly, Jamar Chase started slightly below the age curve in terms of dominator, yards per team pass attempt, in terms of just his market share of yards, and then progress up towards and over their age curve by their final seasons. Now, players who only get over it by their final season are what I define as a late breakout, and those tend to hit at a lower rate. That's essentially why Breakout Age is a good identifier. So it's important to look at how their career actually played out and see if that's the pattern that actually emerges, where it's pretty much average or below average compared to most players in college, and then suddenly they blow up in their final year. It's not insignificant. There are some identifiers like Brandon Marshall, and one or two others that just had this huge dominator their final season, but most of them come with caveats, in particular situational reasons why they only played well that final year, whether it's injuries or mental health issues, or they just didn't play until they were at an older age, like a Calvin Ridley, who was dominant the first year he stepped on the field and above the age curve. So that's why I emphasize actually looking at the way their career progressed. It's because using identifiers like Breakout Age is good, but it doesn't tell you the full story. I'm going to go and look at the full story of their careers. As best as I can figure, these four stand out remarkably, but Rondale Moore's story stops at a very high note, in the same way that Jalen Waddle's story stops at a was it gonna happen kind of a moment. Don't know. I also know, well, I'm not going to do a breakdown of Jalen Waddle right now. I'm just saying, like, when you see, because I'm going to be very high on Moore, and to keep myself honest, I'm letting you know, and I'm putting it in my notes, and it's reflected in my tier, the ranking within this tier, I guess, that he has a similar problem. It's just that his story ended on a high note. Jalen Waddle's ended on a but it's still the same problem, and so it's worth knowing. We don't know how his story plays out if he plays more games. We just don't. We'll have to see what the NFL thinks and where he gets drafted. But right now, pre-draft, he stands out clearly in that way. The others all stand out clearly, and they don't have that little tacky nastiness on the end of their profile. So he falls to the bottom of that tier. All right, and that's my top tier of wide receiver. I talked about it for a while. I hope I didn't bore you to death. Again, just because I'm an analytical nerd doesn't mean I'm sorting by a number. I'm trying to understand how their career progressed. And in my experience, whatever works for you, but that's my process. I want to see how their career progressed, how it compared to past prospects. And since I don't think I have any particular skills at reading if a player's physical skill set is going to translate well, or if their routes are hot fire or anything else. That's what I found to work best for me. So check them out if you want. If not, that's cool too. The data I'm using on talking about to see how their career progresses is pinned to my Twitter timeline. It's pinned to my Patreon. It's free. It's collected by sheer wizards who are in the source tab. Make sure you thank them and give them a follow. And also the websites that we're taking that information from, because they're making it publicly available. Me and you little grinders would not be able to without the benefit of Pro Football Reference that runs the site College Football Reference. And they have a support system. They need finances to keep doing that, so I'm making that a big push this off-season to point out the reason we get free data is because there are a lot of people doing a lot of hard work, and we're just kind of sitting on top of it. So make sure you check those guys out. That's why I don't charge for it, because I don't consider myself the creator or the one putting in the most work for it. So please check those websites out. Check out those grinders, those wizards that are actually getting us access to that information in a voluminous fashion. And yeah, have a nice day. Thanks very much. Come tell me how much you hate me because my top tier sucks. I would enjoy that at Pahowdy. Appreciate it. And I'll talk to you again next time. I remember I've got to make a video, I guess. Thanks. Bye.
Do you have the time?